So basically, it was a research team at the Technical University of Munich quite some years ago. Actually, the start was in the year 2005. It was a team of 5 students at the Technical University of Munich at the chair for measurement systems and sensor technology. And very special thing is the director of this institute. He's really very interesting person. He's totally IP savvy. I mean, sometimes if you work in this area of academics or university, sometimes the researcher see the topic of intellectual property just as a problem, or they see it's basically the opposite of publishing, and normally the main currency is publishing here in the academic field. And this guy, Professor Koch is his name, he likes to say, well, there are 2 currencies as outcome, and the one is publication and the other one are patents. So he's really putting an equal emphasis of both of them, and he actually manages to do this. He's really very, very interesting guy, and I mean, he's a great success, a great track record. Not only many publications like the typical currency in academic research, but also a great track record of 6 successful startups. So this is really quite impressive. So the students were thinking about forming a startup about their research results. However, then the financial crisis hit everybody around the year 2008, and there was basically no funding for startup left. So basically, the oldest of the students, after finishing his PhD, he left the university, and they basically, or at least he sort of gave up the idea of forming a startup, and he went to a very famous management consulting company and working there as a consultant. However, he kept contact to his other PhD student buddies who were a little bit behind him, still doing their PhD work and still thinking about the idea of forming a startup. And then there's a special German funding scheme. It's called Exist. Very interesting funding schemes, especially targeted for startups coming out of the university. Very attractive, but it has some criteria attached to it. Maybe we have afterwards some time to explore this a little bit further. But basically, all the different circumstances, let's put it this way, came together, and this previous student who left after graduation basically came back to join the startup team, and so it was the successful startup team of the 5 previous students here. So it was interesting to see. I mentioned the company fos4X started out with a lot of hardware developer, and actually by the time we wrote the case study just before they had the merger, there were actually more software developer on board on the company than hardware developer. In terms of patent, obviously the computer implemented inventions, they were really important for the company. And just before we had the patent portfolio of the year of the 22 families in the year 2017, and by the time of the merger, there were 80 patent families with about 200 patents. All of them were started as a PCT application and then later on brought into the individual phases like European phase, and only if there were a few less important patents that they had a protection, for example, in Germany. The patent portfolio, and I mean, it was really kind of impressive patent portfolio at the time of the merger. As I mentioned, 80 patent families with about 200 patents. I guess we can call this quite an impressive patent portfolio. This was very attractive for the larger company. But it's not only the patent, it's also well, I guess you could call it people and processes in place. So for example, fos4X had a dedicated group of IP. It was the CEO, the CTO, and I guess if I remember correctly, one full-time employee responsible for the topic of IP in the company fos4X. They had a meeting every 2 weeks to discuss all the IP related topics, and if needed, they brought in the external IP advisor, the IP attorney. So it was really a good working practice there, good processes. For example, the company fos4X encouraged all their employees really to think about invention, to think about which innovation might be interesting for protection, and they made it very, very easy for the employees to sort of report them these inventions to this specific IP board, which means the one employee had not to write a full invention disclosure, fill in this dedicated form, but it was enough if the employee wrote a very, very short summary of basically what he thinks might be interesting in terms of IP, handed this into this IP group. They had a look at it, and only if they said, oh yes, this looks interesting, then there was the need for this sort of full IP disclosure form. So by doing so, lowering the threshold of writing such an invention disclosure, lowering the threshold very much, so encouraging all the employees of the company really think about invention here and possible protection. And sort of just to prove that the, as I said, people and processes were very important for this merger. The two persons who were in charge of, the one person in charge of the topic of intellectual property and the other in charge of innovation in general, they sort of are now having these new positions in the large company, sort of for the whole group. So basically, they were transferred, if you want to this way, or promoted there. Some takeaways here. Business competence is key. This again is basically again in combination with the exist funding schemes. Maybe we have afterward a few minutes to talk about this. It's basically, yes, you need the business competence in the team. If you have a tech transfer office, they can provide you, yes, they can support you, but they cannot be bring this competence into the team. So the business competence has to be really in the team here. Second, patents provide credibility. Yes, it's always sort of a problem if you're a very young startup with a totally new technology. It's kind of difficult to make yourself visible to the established companies and sort of present yourself as a trusted partner that the established company is at least willing to talk to you, really taking time, listen to you. So patents here really sort of a stamp of excellence, a seal of quality, providing credibility here. Yes, obviously, financing is key for a startup. Here we have a lot of sort of financing rounds, and the solid patent protection was very, very important for these startups, especially technology startups, because the investors, if they're looking at these tech startups, they really want to see a very, very solid patent protection. And in addition to this, obviously, it makes an investor very happy if they see early cash flow, because then they see, yes, it seems to work again, sort of seal of quality, very, very positive signals to investor, even though they might prepared for sort of a long way to go until their finance is really bringing some revenue from the market. Even though if there are some early revenues from the markets, it's always a great sign. And we talked about this. Obviously, the core IP is really strategic value for the company, should stay within the company. Really always do your homework, do the assessment of the IP. And if you realize, well, at the beginning we thought this patent is important, it doesn't make sense just to keep it alive. Obviously, it costs to keep a patent alive. Do the regular assessment and then decide if you no longer actually need it. Going in line with your business strategy, then decide what to do with, either stop paying renewal fee or look for transfer or licensing opportunities, other ways of commercializing this patent. It's always better than just to stop paying the renewal fee because you have invested a lot of time, a lot of money. And so if there is a way of external commercialization, that's great. Well, we talked about fending off copycats. Again, intellectual property rights are very important. Really also put emphasis on enforcing them. But for some markets, we mentioned the entry to the Chinese market, it's very helpful to also combine them, for example, with the speed to market, short innovation cycles, and operational excellence, really providing great service to your customer. That's a bundle of activities which help you to fend off copycats. And I guess last but not least, I mentioned these were sort of really sequential events of funding, starting rather early with this Exist funding program I mentioned in the year 2011. And then we had the pre-seed, seed, Series A1, Series A2, Series B. Here we're talking about 8.5 million, together with the strategic repositioning, really focusing on the wind industry. So you see this task of convincing a potential investor by showing that you have a great technology, you have a solid IP protection, is really not a one-time task, but in this case, sort of happening 6 times.